Oh, hey, what are you doing there? Let's get started. The form we're going to be learning today is 다시피, and it's very simple to make. You just take an action verb stem, so any action, 다시피, directly on to the end of that stem. So hada becomes 다시피. That's it. What this means is either in the way of that action verb or as that action verb. For example, if we're doing the action verb 보다, to look, 보 is the stem, that's it. 보다시피, in the way of seeing, or as see, as you see, like you see. It just means that. It means in the way of, or as, or like that verb. This actually has a lot of different uses, but the most basic usage is just as this. This form is commonly used with a few specific verbs. And you can actually just write these down because it's always these same verbs. 보다, to see, 말하다, to say, 듣다, to hear. What is this? 읽다, to read, and 알다, to know. So I said that 다시피 means like in the way of, or like the verb, or just as the verb. In this case, you can translate it as you verb. So in this case, 보다, to see, as you see. 보다시피, as you see. 말하다, to say, or someone says something. So 말했다시피. Well, you should know this form can be used with both the present tense. That's when you just take the verb stem as is. So 보다 is 보다시피. Or you can also use this form with the past tense verb stem. So in that case, 보다, the past tense stem would become, normally you'd get 봤어요, right? So 봤다시피. Now instead of saying 보다시피 as you see, you can also have 봤다시피 as you saw. So continuing, 듣다, 듣다시피, as you hear. Well, you probably wouldn't express as you hear. You'd probably hear someone say as you heard. 들었어요 is the past tense of 듣다, to hear. So 들었다시피, 들었다시피, as you heard. 읽다, to read. 읽었어요, I read. 읽었다시피, as you read. 알다, to know. 알다시피, as you know. And then you would say something that you know the listener already knows. So I said that you can use it with present tense and past tense verb stems. So like 말하다, you can have 말하다시피, or you could also have past tense, 말했다시피. You can also, though, use this with honorific versions of all of those verbs that I gave you. So you could also use 말씀하시다. So instead of just saying 말했다시피, as someone said, now you can say 말씀하셨다시피, as someone said, but now it's much more polite sounding since you're talking about another person. Another quick example, 알다, to know. You could just say 알다시피, as you know, but if you want to be polite, which you usually do when you're talking to other people, you can use the honorific version of 알다, which is 아시다. Now you have 아시다시피, as you know. So let's do an example sentence. 알다시피, 알다, to know. So 알다시피, as you know. 아이스크림은, ice cream, 우유, milk, 로, using or with, 만들어요, to make. So they make, using milk, ice cream. So ice cream is made with milk. As you know, they make ice cream with milk. 알다시피 아이스크림은 우유로 만들어요. 보시다시피. So here it's 보다, to see, in honorific form 보시다. 보시다시피. So as you see, 이 집은, this house, 이미 already, 팔리다, to be sold. So was already or has already been sold. As you see, this house has already been sold. 보시다시피 이 집은 이미 팔렸어요. 듣다, to hear. So 들었다, heard, 들었다시피, as you heard. 내일은, tomorrow, 시험, a test, 시험이 있어요. There is a test tomorrow. As you heard, there is a test tomorrow. 들었다시피 내일은 시험이 있어요. So as you heard, there is a test tomorrow. 엄마, mom. 말하다, to say something. So in this case, 엄마가 말했어요. Mom said, 엄마가 말했다시피. As mom said, 주말에는, so on the weekend, 주말 is weekend, 엔 is 에는, 주말엔 다 같이 all together. 청소 is cleaning. 청소를 할 거야. We're going to do the cleaning all together on the weekend, as mom said. 엄마가 말했다시피 주말엔 다 같이 청소를 할 거야. As mom said, on the weekend, we're all going to do cleaning together. So you don't need to use the 다시피 form as the very first form in a sentence. It can also come after other words. For example, in this case, who said it? Or maybe you had like a time. Maybe like 어제 엄마가 말했다시피. Or like 좀 전에 들었다시피. As you heard a little while ago. You can add in other words like that as well. 다시피, used in that way, is really only used with a small, select amount of verbs that I showed you. But there's another form that also uses 다시피 that at first glance seems completely different, but is actually the same form. So hopefully this form isn't too confusing for you because you got to first take an action verb stem and you add 다시피 just like you did before. But what makes this form 10 times more difficult is then you got to add the verb hada and conjugate it. Oh no. What am I going to do? But the meaning of this form is different. This form means to almost do something. Like you didn't do it, but you almost do it. You can also think of this as meaning practically. Like I practically did it. I practically did. I almost did. Also, this uses an action verb stem. This one though is only the present tense stem. So you would only have, for example, if you were to use hada, you would only get 다시피. You could not have 했다시피 hada with this form. You might be asking, how does this have a different meaning if it's the exact same form just with hada? I'm going to give you a sentence and then I'm going to explain how it works. 작년에는, last year. So last year, 한동안 is just for a while, for a long time. 한국어, Korean language, 매일, every day, 공부하다, to study. 공부하다시피 했어요. So I practically studied, I almost studied Korean every day for a while last year. So last year, for a while, I was practically studying Korean every day. 작년에는 한동안 한국어를 매일 공부하다시피 했어요. So last year, I practically studied Korean every day. If you can read this sentence and understand it, you do not need to know why this is the same form as before. All you need to know is that if you add hada after this form, then you get the meaning of almost or practically. But if you are an advanced learner or you're just really curious, this is actually the same form. I said that 다시피 is used to mean in the way of that verb or like as that verb or like that verb. Before we had 보다, so like 보다시피. As you see, so like in the way that you see, like you see, or as you see. Well, let's pretend that this is that form for a second, not the hada version. So 공부하다시피. So like you're doing studying, as you study, in the way of studying, 했어요. Someone did. So someone did like they studied. That's used to mean that something is similar to. It's like. So they did something similar to studying every day. Korean. So it's actually the same form, but all you need to know is that if you see 다시피 with hada, you can think of it as translating as to almost do or practically do. Now, it doesn't have to be used together with these adverbs, but sometimes you'll see sentences that use 거의 something 다시피 하다 or 겨우 다시피 하다 just to add more emphasis to that meaning of almost or like nearly almost, barely almost. So it's not a requirement, but you also will see these adverbs used together. Okay, let me give you another sentence. 요즘은, lately, nowadays, 도서관, library에서, at the library, 살다, to live, 살다시피. Literally, like I am living, 하고 있어요. So I am doing like I am living at the library these days. 요즘은 도서관에서 살다시피 하고 있어요. So these days I am 하고 있어요. Practically or almost living at the library. 방, room. 방이 너무 좁아요. 좁다 is to be narrow. The room is too small as in like narrow. So 방이 너무 좁아서 because the room is too, 너무 narrow, 앉아서 자다. 앉다 is to sit down. So 앉아서 자다 means to sleep sitting up. 다시피 하다. To do almost like you're sleeping sitting up. So 했어요. I practically slept sitting up because the room is too narrow. 방이 너무 좁아서 앉아서 자다시피 했어요. So because the room was so small or so narrow, I practically slept 앉아서 자다. I practically slept or I almost slept. Pretty much, it's like I was sleeping sitting. Because 다시피 by itself means in the way of or as, like that verb, or like, you can also use it with other things besides just hada. This is also the same form, but this is used as an expression. 밥 먹다시피. 철수는 지각하다 is to be late. So 지각을 해요. 철수 is late. How often? 밥 먹다시피. 밥 먹다 is to eat a meal. So 먹다시피. In the way of eating food, or like he eats food, or as he eats food. So he's late like he eats food. It's used to imply that this happens very frequently. In this case, 철수 is late like he always is, or 철수 is just very frequently late. 철수는 지각을 밥 먹다시피 해요. In this sentence, this 해요 at the end is actually not really talking about this. The sentence originally is just 철수는 지각을 해요. 지각하다 is to be late. So 철수 is late. 밥 먹다시피 is used as an adverb separately from hada, but it's not using he is almost eating food late. No, this is used as an adverb. You can also use 다시피 just like an adverb without hada. Hada is just used to show what the person's doing, like whatever verb that's used before 다시피. This, though, can be a different verb. Let me give you another example. Here is a sentence with 다시피 that doesn't have hada at all. 쓰러지다, to collapse, to fall over, like to faint. 쓰러지다시피. So, like someone collapses. In the way of someone collapsing. So just like someone collapsed, or you can think of it like practically like someone collapsed, or almost as if they collapsed. However you want to translate, 다시피 is fine. Again, it's the same form though, as the verb, like the verb. So like someone collapses, 침대에, so into the bed, 눕다 is to lie down. So they lied down in the bed like they collapsed. This is, I collapsed into bed. So, literally though, I laid down in bed as if or like I collapsed. So, where is the hada in this sentence? If I were to add hada, where would it go? This is a bit advanced, but you could add 하여. 하여 is the same thing as 해. It's just the conjugation of 해 used for like 해서, like that sort of conjugation. The older written version of 해 is 하여. So, doing like they're collapsing and then is what it means, like 해서 침대에 누웠어요. But when you are using 다시피 하다 and hada is not at the end of your sentence, you're using this just as an adverb. Hada is optional and most often dropped. You could add it back in, like 쓰러지다시피 하여 침대에 누웠어요. But then it sounds written and it sounds a little more formal. But it's technically correct. It's the same form. 쓰러지다시피 침대에 누웠어요. So I lied down in bed as if I collapsed or just I collapsed into bed. That is the lesson. Thank you everyone for coming and I will see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐. Oh no!